I do not know how you sleep at night knowing how many people you have stolen from and lied to. There are people you have stolen from whose wedding you attended, who you knew in real life. You're just not fit to be here. You're not fit to work here.
We still haven't been paid for them over a year later.
How could anybody have expected this? So you're either lying about the lawsuit or you're lying about this.
This is a story about dishonesty, fraud, lies, and the alleged theft of hundreds of thousands of dollars from creators that some of you watch every day. The man guilty of all of this has currently deserted all of his social media accounts and is nowhere to be found. But to understand how he got here in the first place, we need to start with a bit of context. Our story begins with a creator known as Paquito. Around 10 years ago, he was known for making pretty run-of-the-mill League of Legends videos, with some more questionable ones thrown in here and there. Eventually, Paquito decided that just making videos wasn't going to cut it anymore, so he announced the release of his new talent agency, Influencer Stuff. Influencer Stuff bridges the gap between influencers and brands, developing partnerships that last longer while also creating a stable workplace for influencers. Transparency is our goal, and we will continue to work towards making this industry a fun and honest place to work. As you'll soon find out, it's safe to say they failed in their goals. If you're not aware of what talent agencies or talent management companies do, their primary goal is to act as a middleman between the content creator and brands, mainly for the purpose of sponsorships. Brands are difficult to contact, and it can involve a lot of back and forth emails, corporate jargon, and so on. The talent agency is there to handle all of that, and in return they take a percentage of the deal, usually no more than 10%. In traditional media, this is normally quite a vetted industry. However, here on the internet, where anyone can say they're anyone, it's an appealing job for people looking to make a quick buck for little to no work, as you're about to find out. Even in this official release video, which Paquito himself said took a month to make, he doesn't even sound 100% sure on what they do.
In that, we're helping these content creators and influencers not only interact with the brands, but also create better content and drive more traffic. If you guys have ever wanted to be a YouTuber, if you guys have ever wanted to sell ice cream, if you guys have ever wanted to work on a cruise ship and vlog it all.
Well, that didn't happen, but here's what did. Moving forward from here, things began to go downhill pretty quickly for everyone involved. Hundreds upon thousands of dollars would soon be stolen, as cracks began to show in the foundations of Influencer Stuff. But in February of 2022, victims of Influencer Stuff would begin to go public, and the true gravity of the situation would begin to reveal itself.
You will lose everything if you do not get help and reassess your behavior. I will never forgive you for what you have done to me and the way you made me a mouthpiece for your despicable lies. I do not know how you sleep at night knowing how many people you have stolen from and lied to.
This is Barney, and she's created some of the most critically acclaimed World of Warcraft videos to date. However, on top of this, she was also one of the original League of Legends creators, shaping the meta for what a lot of people would call the golden era of League content. Barney would work together with Influencer Stuff to launch this plushie that you're seeing right now. They sold out pretty quickly, but as time passed, people started realizing that these plushies just weren't arriving. A month passed, and then another month, and another month, and eventually a whole year passed and people still hadn't received the product that they'd paid money for. While this was all happening though, behind closed doors, Paquito was assuring Barney that the plushies were in fact on their way, when in reality he'd spent the money on God knows what, and the reason that the plushies weren't being sent out was that the manufacturer simply hadn't received payment. Eventually, Paquito's own employees turned against him for reasons that we'll get into shortly, which is the reason any of this even came to light in the first place. And through a lot of pressure from creators, he was forced to pay the distributor and ship the plushies, albeit over a year late. The only person missing their money from this transaction now was Barney, who was owed $38,426.15.
And don't you forget about the 15 cents, bitch.
So why am I telling you this? It just seems like another internet scumbag in another corner of the internet. Unfortunately, it was so much worse than that. Over the next couple of months, a Discord server would form, consisting of the many victims of influencer stuff. Currently, this server has more than 20 creators in it, ranging from people who Paquito has stolen from to former employees of his who have also been stolen from. Alongside this, more info about his time working with Barney would come to light. The contract that he had given her stated that influencer stuff would withhold 15% of branding deals as commission. This is already on the higher side of average given the industry standard, but secretly, behind the scenes, influencer stuff were taking double this amount without saying anything. Paquito had also during this time fired all of his employees, stating that they were stealing from him behind his back. However, after speaking to his employees myself, I can confirm that this wasn't the case at all. He simply fired them because he thought that looking for other jobs while still working for him was stealing. Most of his employees around this time started leaving purely because the true details of his operation started coming to light, and they didn't really want to be complicit. Me, I don't think that's stealing. But what I think is stealing is refusing to pay your employees' paychecks simply because you think they don't deserve it. Yep, that is actual theft. Between everyone in the Discord and multiple companies, it's estimated that Paquito and influencer stuff were around $300,000 in debt, and that's only the cases that we know about, by the way. And he was not in any hurry to pay people back. It's now been almost a year since the initial incident, and for the majority of people, they've seen only scraps of what they're meant to be reimbursed with, or in the worst cases, completely ignored and blocked. Since Barney's video dropped, Paquito's socials have seemed to be completely abandoned, with the last activity being a retweet in August 2022. However, behind the scenes, influencer stuff wasn't showing any signs of slowing down. He told me he's confident he can lay low for a bit and continue to generate revenue by working with creators, and that he's currently doing so via existing and new deals. It's worth mentioning that the following section will contain personal information about Paquito. This is all info that he's freely posted himself on basically every single social media platform imaginable, but still, if you're uncomfortable seeing that sort of thing, now's your time to look away. Paquito's real name is Richard Little. Yes, I'm not joking, his name is literally Dick Little. Richard freely giving us this information was fairly integral to everything that we found moving forwards. Lol, I have my tax credit and selling the house at $250k profit coming up. I just gotta sell this house quicker, but everyone bugging me about their moolah that Chase and Joe essentially put me in this bind by not working at taking moolah. So this was a message from Richard, and there's a couple things we can take from this. First of all, he's planning to sell his house soon at a $250k profit. This would cover a large portion of the debt that he's owed. As we'll find out soon, his house did actually get sold, but that money is still pretty much anywhere except in the hands of the people that it belongs to. Secondly, he's still blaming this whole situation on former employees. In his mind, this all could have been avoided if people just kept their mouths shut and kept bringing in more sponsorship deals, which, by the way, is the literal definition of a Ponzi scheme. An investment fraud that pays existing investors with funds collected from new investors. Just that, in this case, they weren't investors, they were just content creators and employees trying to make a living for themselves. Richard's house, which you can see here, did sell at $385,000 earlier this year. I've blurred out any identifying details, but I can confirm this did belong to him through either ex-employees who knew him in real life or former creators that he's worked with who know his address, because when you transfer any amount of funds through PayPal, the website will also include your address in the receipt. So if the creators haven't received this money, where did it go? Earlier this year, Richard changed his profile picture to himself on a holiday. Interesting. In the middle of the year, he changed his cover picture to a place that also doesn't look very much like America. A quick reverse Google search reveals that this is in fact the Netherlands. While this could just be an old photo, it's at the very least thought-provoking. On April 24th, Barney called out Dick Little for buying a $650 chair and then bragging about it on social media. As a response, Richard decided the best course of action would be to block her. How the fuck do you have the nerve to be buying $650 ugly armchairs and posting it on social media when you owe me literally $40,000? I didn't buy that for $650, quit stalking me. I'm blocking you here and you can email me to discuss payments, but I don't need someone like you calling me names and such. So, seeing as almost a whole year has passed, what's he up to now? Well, it seems like he's still trying to run a similar business, just behind the scenes. Obviously, influencer stuff's social media accounts have gone dead, but multiple screenshots have emerged of him trying to get in touch with other creators as recently as April. In June, an email was sent stating that as soon as his house was sold, a payment would be made. Well, we know that hasn't happened, but what did happen was on the 20th of August this year, he and his family bought a bus. We knew after selling the house that we wanted to put some money towards a travel trailer or an RV. Instead, we bought a partially converted schoolie. Richard and I have wanted to do a bus conversion for a long time, and we can't wait to turn this into ours. Although this was posted publicly, I've still blurred out any identifying information, especially because there's kids involved in this, which kind of just makes me sad. As for influencer stuff, the website has finally gone down, but the domain is still parked. This pretty much just means that he's still paying a recurring fee to make sure that no one else could take the name. And it was renewed as recently as the 26th of December. Probably a good idea by him because I was fully ready to drop $100 on the website and make this the only page. Yes, I'm that petty. Up until about 4 months ago, Richard was still active on LinkedIn, until he started getting cooked in the comments there as well. Despite his company still being active on the website, the chances of anyone involved getting their money is progressively smaller as time goes on. While he has technically committed wire fraud, which is kind of a big deal crime where he lives in the United States, it's hard to prove criminal intent because he's still trying, in air quotes, to pay people back. Or at least that's what he says. Unfortunately, due to this, suing him is a bit of a fruitless endeavor. While this is a pretty spectacular case for an outsider to view, it is important to remember that multiple real people have been affected here. For a larger creator, there's still the possibility to bounce back from this, but for smaller creators, this would completely destroy your career. That's without even beginning on the story of actual employees of the company. I was lucky enough to talk to a former employee at Influencer Stuff who has asked to remain anonymous, but shared some insight on how things worked behind the scenes and how it's affected them moving forwards. I've had 2 interviews in which the interviewer asked about influencer stuff and my involvement. Even though I was overqualified for both, I was offered neither position. I can only assume it had to do with the association. While this is just speculation, it does seem highly likely that this is the reason applications were rejected, just from looking at all the evidence that we've seen so far. I have considered suing for defamation, but I don't want to take any money away from those that are owed, and I doubt I'd ever see a cent. After a while at the company, he started mass hiring and spending money where he shouldn't. I quickly dropped to the bottom of the ladder and he stopped listening to my advice and suggestions. That was the point in which I started looking for work elsewhere. He considered working for him and looking for other work at the same time, stealing from the company. A lot of the individuals affected in this video have chosen to stay anonymous to protect themselves, but anyone who is comfortable going public has been included in the description down below if you would like to support them. Even though me making this video isn't going to suddenly convince Richard to give anyone their money back, if I can stop even one person from being tricked in the future and having to go through this same fate, then in my mind, it's worth it.